It started as a normal day at the city zoo. Families laughed, children pointed at animals, and cameras clicked everywhere. But near the gorilla enclosure, something strange began to unfold. A little girl, no older than 2, stood silently by the glass. She wasn't scared, she was staring. Her tiny hands pressed gently against the barrier, eyes locked on the massive creature inside. The gorilla, known for being distant and unpredictable, suddenly froze. His deep brown eyes softened, as if he recognized her. The zookeeper, watching from afar, felt his chest tighten. He had seen this gorilla roar, throw objects, even frighten adults. But now he sat down slowly, his gaze never leaving the child. The toddler smiled, tilting her head, whispering a sound no one could understand. The entire crowd went silent. Something unseen passed between them, something human. The gorilla placed his hand against the glass, right where hers rested. Tears filled the zookeeper's eyes. He had witnessed many things, but never this kind of connection. And when he looked closer, what he saw made his blood run cold. He immediately radioed his team, "Get here, now," because the reason for that bond was beyond anything he had ever imagined. And what happened next would change everyone's life forever. The zookeeper had worked there for 20 years. He thought he'd seen every kind of behavior from every animal. But this was different. The gorilla wasn't angry or alert. He was emotional. His chest rose and fell heavily, his eyes glistening. The little girl, unaware of the crowd, just smiled. Her laughter was soft, innocent, echoing through the enclosure, and the gorilla leaned closer, pressing his forehead against the glass. No one dared move. Even the parents stood frozen, afraid to break the moment. The zookeeper's hand trembled as he lifted his radio. "Stay calm," he whispered to his team. "Don't scare them." He could feel something sacred unfolding before him. A connection, deep, unseen, yet so real. The gorilla grunted softly, almost like he was speaking, and the toddler responded with a giggle. 2 souls, one wild, one pure, seeing each other with no fear. The zookeeper's voice cracked. "It's like he knows her." No one believed him, but the look in the gorilla's eyes said everything. Something about that child had reached a part of him long forgotten. Something powerful, something lost. And the zookeeper's heart began to race. Because deep down he knew this moment was no accident. It was destiny unfolding before his eyes. After the zoo closed that evening, the zookeeper couldn't rest. He replayed the scene in his mind, again and again. He went through the day's surveillance footage. And that's when he noticed something he hadn't before. A small photo fell from the little girl's bag earlier that morning. He paused the footage, zoomed in, and froze. It was an old, faded picture of a woman holding a baby. And beside them, in the background, was a gorilla. The same one. His heart stopped. This was impossible. The photo was dated 15 years ago. He printed it, trembling as he stared at the familiar eyes. Could this gorilla have remembered? A human, the one who once cared for him before he came to the zoo. The pieces started connecting painfully slow. The girl's mother had once volunteered at the wildlife rescue. She used to feed, clean, and comfort a young gorilla before transferring him here. And that gorilla was now fully grown. The one staring at her daughter today. Tears blurred the zookeeper's vision. This wasn't just recognition. It was reunion, through generations. A mother's kindness had echoed through time, to her child. And the gorilla's heart had never forgotten it. When the zookeeper met the girl's mother the next day, his voice shook. "Ma'am, I think your daughter reminded someone of you." She laughed nervously, not understanding, until he showed her the photo. Her smile vanished, replaced by tears. That's impossible," she whispered. She told him how, years ago, She worked at a sanctuary in Africa. There was one baby gorilla she loved deeply. He had been rescued after his family was killed by poachers. She named him Kano. She raised him for 2 years before he was transferred abroad. She cried the day he left, promising she'd never forget him. And now, he was here. The same gentle eyes, the same mark above his brow. Her daughter, with the same smile, same heart, had unknowingly found him again. The zookeeper's throat tightened. Fate had brought them back together, not through chance, but love. The mother and child visited the enclosure that day. The gorilla immediately noticed them both. He approached slowly, placing his massive hand on the glass again. And for the first time in years, the mother whispered his name. Kano. The gorilla froze, then let out a low, trembling sound. A sound that broke every heart watching. He remembered. From that day onward, something changed at the zoo. Kano became calm, peaceful, even protective. Every time the little girl visited, he sat near the glass waiting. He never once showed aggression again. The other keepers couldn't explain it. But the zookeeper knew the truth. He had found a piece of love that animals never forget. It wasn't instinct. It was emotion. The mother often cried silently, watching from afar. She could see in Kano's eyes 1,000 memories. Every banana she'd peeled, every wound she'd cleaned, every lullaby she'd hummed. They all lived in him still. And now, through her daughter, that love had been reborn. One day, the girl placed her small hand against the glass again. Kano leaned in, eyes soft, shoulders trembling. The zookeeper whispered, "He's guarding her now." He wasn't just an animal anymore. He was a protector. A reminder that kindness never fades. That love, once given, never dies. And even in silence, some hearts still speak. The bond between the girl and Kano became the zoo's greatest secret, a living testament to compassion across generations. And it was only the beginning. It was a cloudy morning when the call came in. Kano wasn't moving. The zookeeper ran across the grounds, heart pounding in fear. Visitors whispered, crowds gathered, tension filled the air. He reached the enclosure and froze. Kano was sitting still, his eyes open, fixed toward the gate. The same gate where the little girl usually entered. The zookeeper checked his pulse, his breath. Kano was gone. Tears fell freely as the mother arrived, holding her child. The gorilla had waited, one last time, to see them. The mother knelt, whispering through the glass, "Goodbye, my friend." And her daughter pressed her hand against the cold surface. A butterfly landed on it, fluttering softly, as if saying farewell. The zookeeper whispered. He kept his promise. The zoo was silent that day. No laughter, no noise. Only the sound of wind passing gently through the trees. And in that silence, they all felt it. The presence of love that never truly leaves. A love so pure, it could bridge worlds. And a friendship that would be remembered forever. The night after Kano's passing, the zookeeper couldn't sleep. His hands shook as he opened his old journal. He had written everything. Every moment, every emotion. But tonight, he added one last page. A letter, not to a person, but to a soul. To Kano, he began, tears dropping onto the paper. You reminded us what humanity truly means. You showed me that love doesn't belong to one species. It belongs to every heart brave enough to feel it. He wrote about the bond between the child and the gorilla, about how the mother's kindness had crossed generations, and how a little girl's laughter brought peace to a broken spirit. He folded the letter carefully and sealed it with trembling hands. The next morning, before sunrise, he walked to the enclosure. He placed the letter beneath the old oak tree nearby. That's where he used to sit, he whispered softly. The wind blew gently, lifting the corner of the page. For a moment, it felt like Kano's spirit was listening. The zookeeper smiled through his tears. He had seen many things in his life. but none this pure. As he turned to leave, a faint rustling came from the trees. A baby gorilla peeked out, born just days before Kano's death. Its eyes glowed with the same soft brown light, and the zookeeper knew the story wasn't over. Love had found a way to begin again. Years passed, but the memory never faded. The little girl grew older, but her heart remained gentle. Every birthday, she visited the zoo with flowers. She'd sit near the oak tree and talk softly, as if to a friend. The zookeeper would watch from a distance, smiling. He never interrupted her moments of silence, because he knew she wasn't just remembering, she was connecting. She'd whisper stories about her school, her dreams, her fears, and somehow, every time, the wind would stir softly, as if nature itself was listening. One day, she brought her newborn brother to the zoo. She held his hand near the same glass where Kano once sat. "Someday," she whispered, "I'll tell you about him." Her voice trembled, her eyes full of warmth. She believed love never dies. It just changes form. The zookeeper approached her gently. "Do you still remember him?" he asked. She nodded, smiling. "He was my first protector. And he still is," the zookeeper said quietly. Together, they stood by the glass, feeling the same calm energy. The new baby gorilla came close, curious, and kind. He tilted his head, just like Kano once did, and the girl's tears sparkled in the sunlight. Because she knew, hearts that truly love never say goodbye. They only wait for the next hello. Late one evening, the mother returned alone. The zoo was quiet, the lights dim, the air still. She carried a small box in her hands, old, worn, precious. Inside were photos, letters, and a piece of Kano's blanket from years ago. She sat by the glass, eyes wet with memories. "Do you remember, my friend?" she whispered softly. "You were just a baby when I found you crying. You had lost everything, and I promised you'd never feel alone again." Her voice cracked with emotion. "I couldn't save them all, Kano, but you saved me." Tears streamed down her face as she placed the box by the oak. "This is where you belong," she said. The moonlight bathed the enclosure in silver glow. For a moment, she could almost see him, tall, gentle, watching. She smiled through her tears. "You kept my daughter safe, just like you promised." A soft breeze rustled the leaves above her, and in that sound, she heard his voice, deep, calm, forgiving. It was as if the earth itself thanked her. The zookeeper, hidden nearby, watched in silence. Some bonds don't need words. Some love stories never end. They just turn into legends. And this one would live forever in whispers of the wind. Word spread about the story of the gorilla and the girl. People from all over the world came to see the oak tree. Not for photos, but for peace. Children left flowers, drawings, and notes that said, "Thank you, Kano." The zoo built a small memorial in his honor. It wasn't grand, just simple, kind, and pure. A stone engraved with the words, "Love knows no boundaries," in memory of Kano. The zookeeper often found visitors crying quietly there. He'd tell them, he wasn't just an animal. He was love in its truest form. Donations poured in, not for cages, but for sanctuaries. The zoo changed its mission. No more isolation, only connection. Children were taught to treat animals with respect, not fear. And every year, on the anniversary of Kano's passing, the little girl, now a young woman, released a white balloon into the sky. "For you," she'd whisper, and the wind would always carry it toward the oak tree. The world may have moved on, but the story didn't fade. It became a reminder that love, once given, never disappears. It transforms into hope, kindness, and faith in goodness. And that's how one gorilla changed the world, without saying a single word. Many years later, the zoo was different, greener, freer, alive. The zookeeper had grown old, but his spirit was still strong. He often sat under the oak tree, talking to children about Kano. He'd say, "Do you know what makes someone truly strong? Not their size, but their heart." And every time he spoke, his eyes would soften with memory. One day, the young woman returned with her own child. The cycle of love had continued, pure, endless, alive. Her little boy looked at the new gorilla, curious and smiling. And the gorilla, a descendant of Kano, smiled back. History repeated, beautifully and gently. The zookeeper felt tears warm his face. It was as if time itself bowed to love. The mother hugged her son tightly. "Remember," she whispered, "kindness always finds its way home." The leaves above rustled softly in approval. The world kept spinning, but some hearts remained eternal. Kano's legacy wasn't just a story, it was a truth. That compassion has no limit, no species, no end. The oak tree stood tall, its roots deep, its branches wide. A symbol of love that began with a single act of care. And as the sun set behind it, the zookeeper smiled one last time. Because he knew, love had won. Love doesn't need words. It speaks through hearts. A single act of kindness can echo through generations. Even the wildest soul remembers who showed it care. The gorilla didn't just see a child. He saw love reborn. True connection knows no species, only emotion. The girl and Kano prove that compassion never dies. It travels beyond time, beyond language, beyond life. Sometimes angels don't have wings, they have gentle eyes. And sometimes the truest hearts beat in silence. Because love, once given, never fades. It only finds new forms.